Hi, this video will show you how to download the PLE self-assessment, how to take the self-assessment, and how to view and understand your results. So the first thing you're going to want to do is open a browser and navigate to PLE, which stands for Personalized Learning Environment.gcsnc.com. Once you get there, scroll down about a third of the way down and click on PLE Resource Center. Once here, scroll down to the middle and click Take the PLE Self-Assessment. Now you've already done number 1 on this page, which is watch this video, so let's move on to number 2, download the self-assessment. Depending on what browser you're using, you may get a box like you see here on my screen. You may get a message up top asking you whether you want to download or open the file. You may get some kind of download indicator at the bottom of your screen. Whatever the case may be, you ultimately want to get this file open. Once you have it open, you may get a yellow bar up at the top that asks you if you want to enable editing. You do want to enable editing if you get that yellow bar. Otherwise, you won't be able to input your answers. So you'll see at the bottom of this workbook several tabs. The first 2 are instructions, the long and the short version, then the questions that you'll answer, and the rest are all ways of viewing your results. So let's start with instructions. I'm not going to read these to you, but there are a few important pieces that I want to point out. The first is that your results are completely private. The sole purpose of putting this assessment into Excel was to give you confidence that no one else could be looking over your shoulder, your principal, someone in tech services, to see what your results are. So this file can be saved or not, and it can be shared with someone or not, but only if you choose. If you choose to not save this file, your results are gone. And if you save it to your hard drive or your flash drive, then you're the only one who can view those. The second thing is to answer the questions honestly. Don't answer them based on what you think you should be doing, or what you think someone else thinks you should be doing, or what you wish you were doing. The only way to get an accurate picture of how you actually teach is to answer the questions based on how you actually teach. So be honest with yourself. The next thing is to answer these questions based on your gut reaction. Don't overthink them. There are no trick questions. There are no hidden meanings. Just answer the questions at face value. So let's move on to the questions. On the questions page, the first thing we want to do is randomize the order in which our questions appear. To do that, I click on the drop-down button here and I choose either of these first 2 options. And every time I do it, it will change the order of the questions. And it's truly random. Even if I chose sort largest to smallest every time, I would get a truly randomized order. So let's look at this first question about providing feedback to students through rubrics. Now I need to put a response in here that indicates how often I do this. You'll notice that you have options 1 through 4. So we need to talk about what those options are. In either set of instructions, the long or short, you will find the key here. 1 is never, 4 is always, and 2 or 3 is something in between. So when I come back, let's say that in this case, I sometimes use rubrics. Well, sometimes was number 2. And when I choose that, you'll see that I get the feedback there that lets me know that I chose sometimes. So if you forget the numbers, you'll always be able to see what you chose right here. Now that you know how to answer questions, we just need to go through all of these and provide your answers. Notice there's a couple of ways. The first way is the way I showed you before, and that's choosing a number with your mouse. The other is you can just type a number. So I could type the number 2 and click my enter button and it shows up. Notice you do need to choose between 1 and 4. If I put in the number 5, I'm going to get an error. So I need to go back and change that to something 1 through 4. So I'm quickly going to enter my responses to these questions. Now that I've answered all the questions, I'm ready to view my results. Now you'll recall that we have 2 navigators, a condensed navigator and an expanded navigator. If that sounds foreign to you, you're not familiar with the 2 different kinds of navigators, you're going to want to navigate back to the Resource Center and choose Learn About PLE, and then watch this video, Introduction to PLE Navigators. That'll help you understand the difference between the condensed navigator and the expanded navigator. So let's go back to our Excel file, and let's start with the condensed results, because that's the way we encourage most people to view their results. Click on the tab, and you won't see anything until you refresh your results. So I'm going to right click on the chart, and I'm going to click Refresh Data, and there are all my results. You can see the strands down here, and then each of the instructional practices are right here. So I could say, for example, let's choose target since it's small. I have these 3 instructional practices inside the target strand, and target 3 is where I'm the weakest. Target 01 is where I'm the strongest. So I can bounce right back over to the condensed navigator and see that I am weakest in sharing a learning map with my students, but I'm strongest in planning engaging lessons, the target standards. And I can go back and look at each one of these strands and each one of these instructional practices to figure out where I'm strong and where I might want to do some more work. If I go to the results strands, I have a similar chart. I need to refresh data again. And now it takes away all the instructional practices and just shows me the strands. So now I know that I can use the most work in culture, and I am the strongest in using assessments. There's a second way to look at these strands. One is this bar graph, the other is the radar chart. The radar chart is simply a different way to look at your average scores by instructional strand. I should interject here that if the bar chart is sufficient for you to understand your results by instructional strand, and if this explanation of the radar chart seems confusing, then just ignore it and skip to the next section of the video. So the strands are on each one of these vertices here, and your average score for that strand is shown using these color segments. And that tells me here that in assess and target and group, I'm close to about 2.5 probably there, and that I begin to lose a little ground here on this side with blend and culture and environment. One thing to be careful of with the radar chart is that the range is only going to go as high as is needed to show all of your scores. So in this case, all of my average scores for each strand are below 3. So the outermost band in this chart is a 3.0, not a 4.0, which is actually the top of our range. So here I look like I'm pretty close on target and on assess, and I am close to a 3.0, but the highest value possible is a 4.0, and it just isn't shown on this particular chart because my set of results that I just randomly entered created averages for each strand that were less than 3, so it had no need to show me a 4.0 band. So just be mindful of that, and don't look at this visually and say, hey, I'm almost there, and not realize that you're actually comparing yourself to a 3.0 when you really want to compare yourself to a 4.0. So with this information, your strand information, and particularly your information, your results by instructional strand, you can compare to the navigator. And what I would encourage you to do is go ahead and just write your scores down here for each instructional practice and see where you're strong, and identify places that you want to work on so that you can spend some time finding professional development resources to help you grow in that area. Now, if you choose to use the expanded navigator, I'm going to move over to this tab, and you'll notice that I already have results. And that's because some of these charts are tied together. And because I refreshed one of the other ones, this one refreshed. If this is blank when you come to it, again, just right-click and refresh data. So I see the same exact thing here. I see my strands at the bottom. The only difference is now I have all of the expanded instructional practices, which there are more than the condensed practices. But again, I just have a value for each one. And the other difference is the expanded navigator includes phases. So here I can look at my results based on phase. So what this tells me is that I am spending most of my time in the guiding phase and spending the least amount of time in the directing phase, and then spending some amount of time in between in facilitating. These two in the middle for result strands, the bar and the radar, are the same because these strands are the same for both navigators. So that concludes this video. You should be ready to download your assessment, take your assessment, and then view and understand your results. Good luck!